Good morning / afternoon. Happy Thursday. Just admitting a few people here.
Hello.
Hello. Happy Thursday. Oh, it helps if I turn on my video, doesn't it? That's good. Okay, guys, happy Thursday. So welcome to our Thursday training. I assume that people are going to keep joining as we go on, but for right now, I think we're going to get started. So again, I've been going back through trainings that I've done previously and have noticed how long it's been since I've covered certain things. So today, does anybody happen to know what the biggest sea anchor to savings and future financial planning is in the US? Anybody? Okay, so for those of us who just joined, I'm going to ask the question again. So does anybody know what the biggest sea anchor to American savings is? I'll give you a hint. All of us, well, I shouldn't say all of us, but a good lot of us have it, and that is a big part of what we do as financial consultants. High cost of living, that is a very good guess. Actually, guys, it's debt. So debt is the biggest sea anchor to savings. And the fact that that's not foremost in our mind actually is a great point to start this discussion. So does anybody know how specifically what part of debt is the biggest sea anchor? Anybody? So we all spend money, right? I'm assuming that we all spend money. So spending money is what we call the principal of a debt because it's money that we're spending. But whether or not we are incurring debt, we're still spending that money. So what could be the sea anchor? Credit cards is a good one. Actually, that is probably the number one. But what part of credit cards makes them a sea anchor? When we're trying to eliminate debt for our clients, what is something that we might talk about?
Interest.
Interest, thank you. So does anybody know how interest is calculated?
Yeah.
How is interest calculated?
Well, several ways, but basically the date of the last charge, and it's accruing from that.
Okay.
Date of last charge, sometimes date of last payment.
Yep. So it's an average, it's based on average rolling balance, right?
Right.
Right. So I'm actually going to open up my whiteboard here so that I can share my screen. One quick second. Share screen. So can everybody see my whiteboard? Anybody?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so how is interest calculated? So there are two ways that interest could be calculated, right? We've got simple and compound. And just admitting people, sorry. So first off, do we know what simple and compound interest are? I'll take that as a no. Oh, great. Thank you for putting it in the chat, Tim. I keep forgetting to look at the chat box. Okay, so because we don't know what these are, we can't really address them, right? and that's most people. But Albert Einstein actually said that those who know how to deal with, or who know what compound interest is, will earn compound interest. Those who don't will pay it. So that being said, does anybody know what things are calculated on a simple interest basis? Anybody? Mortgages are actually compound interest, believe it or not, which is one of those things that people find out and they go, really? Yep, they are. So first off, let's start with savings accounts are also compound interest. Even though we're making basically nothing, they are actually compound interest most of the time. So what is simple interest? Simple interest. Please excuse my terrible handwriting. Okay, so the calculation close. So yes, Andrew is actually very close. There's actually a simpler calculation for it. So interest equals principal times rate times time. So if we have a principal of $1,000 times a rate of 4%, 0.04, because it's a percentage, times time is 1 year. So what does that give us?
$4 annually.
$40.
$40 annually. Okay, so we've had a lot of good guesses, but does anybody know what the only loan is that calculates simple interest?
Well, I know the insurance.
Ding, ding, ding. 10 points to
Right.
Gryffindor.
Simple
So,
interest.
so the only loans that really that calculate on a simple interest basis are loans against your insurance bank.
Right.
So keep that number in our heads. Let's say $40 annually. Okay. So now I want to show a different example. Let me erase this really quick. Okay, this is not going to erase really quick. 1 second. I'm just going to get a new whiteboard. New whiteboard. It's faster than erasing it. Okay. So how does compound interest work? Anybody?
It's interest compounding on interest.
Basically, yes. So if we're looking at the calculation for that, we've got the amount equals the principal times 1 plus R divided by N to the NT power. So right away, this looks a whole lot more complicated than simple interest does, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, a lot more complicated. So we're just going to break this down for a minute. So A equals the amount. P is the principal. R equals the rate.
And is the number.
N equals the number of times the That's a T. Interest. Move the faces box so I can actually write on my white screen, on my whiteboard. Number of times interest compounds per period. And T equals
Time.
the number
Hmm.
of periods elapsed. Okay. So does this make sense to everyone thus far?
It does to me.
Okay, so everybody understands what each variable is.
Mhm.
Okay, great. So we're going to go through a quick example. And for this one, I actually am going to erase it. So bear with me just one quick second while I try to erase this. One of these days, I actually will get new batteries for my pen to make this easier. But for right now, I'm just writing with my finger. Okay. So bear with me one quick second. Okay. Pen. So we're going to go through an example. So our amount, we're going to use the same principal and the same rate. Okay.
Mhm.
So we have our $1,000 principal times 1 plus our rate is 0.04 divided by N, which was the number of times interest compounds per period. So using compound interest, does anybody know what the most common number of times is for interest to compound? Anybody?
Well,
12?
Mhm.
That's actually a good guess. So that would be monthly. It's actually daily.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I was gonna say.
yeah.
365.
Student loans, student loans compound daily, credit cards compound daily, mortgages compound daily. Savings accounts can be daily, monthly, or quarterly, but a good lot of them are actually daily. Car notes. Anybody know about this one? Car notes? Also daily, but none of us actually know that. Car notes are actually my favorite. We're going to go through an example in that in a minute of how car notes work. But anyway, so let's say that the average number of days per month is 30. So now we've got that calculation, and now we're going to do this whole thing to the NT power. So 30 times is the number of times per period that it compounds, and the number of periods elapsed, just for simplicity's sake, we're going to say is 1 month. Okay. So does anybody know how to simplify or solve this equation? Does anybody know what the order of operations does?
Now, first, we got to figure out the time. And
So
then
we figured out the
divide,
time. The time we're saying is 1 month.
right? So it's 30 days.
Yep. So we've
Yeah.
got the equation. Now we just, oh, sorry, give me 1 second. I'm admitting people. So we've got the equation. Now we just need to simplify it and solve
Divide
for
the-
A.
Divide the interest into the,
So I'm
Really?
going to put
hmm,
PEMDAS.
I put all these things in.
Take
a-
care in the bracket first. Great. So we're going to solve what's in here first, but how are we going to do this? So PEMDAS, or please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, is known as our order of operations. So what that means is parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. That is our order of operations. So yes, division will come first because that's what we have inside of our parentheses. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 0.04 and divide by 30. and that gives us 0.001333. And now we're going to add 1 to it, right? So we've got A equals 1,000 times 1.0. How many zeros do I have? 2 zeros. 133 to the 30th power, right? So now we need to figure out what 1.00133 is to the 30th power. So I am going to, I had a calculator up. Where did it go? All right, I'm just going to Google it real quick because I've lost my tab. So power calculator. So we've got 1.00133. Is this our number? This is our number, right?
Yeah, I think so.
To the 30th, backspace. To the 30th power. So we've got 1.0407 basically. Okay. So we'll minimize that. So A equals 1,000 times 1 point, what did we just say it was?
007.
I was slightly higher than that, I think. Yeah, 1.0407. 0407. Okay. So now what we're going to do is multiply this out. So basically we're moving our decimal point 3 places. So A
It's 1.7.
equals 1,040.70 per month. So if we are figuring out what our interest rate is, we would subtract out our principal. So our interest is $40.70. So now we're going to take this and multiply by 12. So 40.7 times 12 is 488.70 per year. That's if our balance, if our principal interest is always $1,000. And that's if we have a 4% rate of interest. So in anything that is compound interest, can somebody give me an example that it would be 4% interest? Anybody?
Good.
So in our compound interest column, things that might be 4% interest, a car maybe, average is a little bit higher than that. It depends on when you refinance your house last. Maybe your house interest is 4% compounded. That's incredible. The interest is almost half the balance. Yes, it is. And that is the way compound interest works. So if we have compound interest, we're paying, what is that? Almost 11, more than almost 12. Yeah, it is 12 times actually. Because what was our simple interest rate? $40 a year
Yeah.
per thousand versus the almost $500 a year that we're paying on compound interest. So now let's think about our credit cards. What's the average rate of a credit card?
18 to 25.
18 to 25.
Mhm.
So if we did the same calculation with, say, 22% interest, wouldn't that exponentially increase this amount?
Yeah,
So in New York State, it's 22% for credit cards. Yeah, exactly. So when we're looking at debts, isn't it very prudent for us to get rid of debts first before we do anything?
yep.
Exactly. So, and what we've already talked about it, but what bank is going to give us a simple interest loan? What's the only one that'll do that?
No, personal bank.
Our personal life insurance banks will give us a simple interest loan. And just for the record, guys, I actually did call Foresters today, and it is a simple interest loan calculated on an annual basis. So we have 100% confirmation on that. I know the question was asked a while ago. So yes, when we're talking about this, you know, that's good for us to know, both as consumers and as financial professionals. All the banks are based here and they let them do anything they want. Yeah, they do. Banks have an immense amount of power. So let's talk about this from a consumer standpoint. Let's say you want to get a new car. What is the interest rate? Does anybody here have a car loan? Let me ask that. Does anybody here have a car loan? Or know someone who does? Okay, great. So we all know somebody who has a car loan. Does anybody know what the interest rate on their car loan is? Anybody? If it's not 0%, thank you. You're one of few that actually does. So for most people, if it's not a 0% loan for 60 months, they have absolutely no idea what their interest is. Why? Anybody? When you go into the dealership and you buy a new car, do they ever tell you what your interest rate is going to be?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm sure it's in the fine print somewhere. They're only worried about a monthly payment. Thank you. 10 points to Gryffindor. So when we're going into a dealership and you find a car that you like, what do they ask you? What are the 3 questions they ask you? What is your trade-in? They want to know what the valuation of your trade-in is. How much money are you looking to put down? Okay, that's the 4th question. Thank you, Tim. Are you going to finance this here? And if the answer to that question is yes, what's the next question they're going to ask you? Anybody? Down payment, we've already talked about that. How's your credit? Great. What can you afford monthly? That's what they want to know. What can you afford monthly? Notice they never ever talk about the terms of the loan. They never talk about that it's going to be a 5-year note. They never talk about what the interest rate is. You know, they'll come out and say, great, you know, this brand new 2022, whatever kind of car it is, we can get, you know, with your trade-in and with your down payment, we can get this to you for $600 a month. And you're like, that's high, because all you really planned on spending was $475. So they finally get that information out of you. And what do they say? What do they say? They're going to say, you know what? You know, we'd really love to see you close this business here. Let me see what I can do for you. Then they go talk to the manager. They go back to the finance guys and they crunch more numbers. And when they come back to you, they're going to say, you know what? We have fabulous news. We can get you this car for $469.87 a month. How did they do it?
Oh, well, expanding the time.
They expanded the time and they increased your interest rate. So now instead of having a 5-year loan for 0.9%, you now have an 84-month loan for 5.5%.
84 months.
Did they tell you that?
It's in the fine
Did you
print.
ask? Do you even care? Most consumers don't, because the way a consumer thinks is, awesome, it fits into my budget, I can afford this car. Nobody's looking at the longevity of, can they afford this car, or how much is this car actually costing me? Nobody cares what it's actually costing them because they can afford it today. Because we have been trained and conditioned to be a consumer-driven society where we're not thinking about next year, 5 years, 10 years, 30 years from now. We're thinking about today, this month. What can I afford right now? They're not thinking about the long-term cost. So hence why Albert Einstein said that people who understand compound interest will earn it. People who don't understand compound interest will pay it. Does his statement make more sense now?
Oh, definitely. Especially the earning part.
Especially what?
The earning part.
Yeah.
Well, to
Yeah.
me anyway.
Yeah. So can I make a short comment on car loans? Please do.
Okay, Kendra, this is about car loans.
Yep.
They always ask you how much you make a month, which is gross. So they're selling you based on your gross, but you only get home with 70 cents per dollar.
If you're lucky.
That
Take a
is a really
$500
good
car
point.
payment, divide it by 70 cents, and how many 70-cent dollars does it take to pay a $500 car payment? 714 70 cents. In 100-cent dollars, that's an extra 150 a month. So you're really not spending $500 a month. You're spending $650, and then people wonder why they don't have any money at the end of the month.
Exactly. Exactly. And when you buy a car and the sticker on it is $20,000, forgetting the interest on it, I'm talking about just the purchase price of the car. How much is that car actually costing you? Anybody know? So I'm actually going to bring up another, in New York State, if your car gets repossessed because you can't make the payments, they sell the car at auction and you still have to pay off the loan. It destroys your credit. I'm sure that's a lot of states. I haven't personally looked that far into it, but yeah, exactly. So taxes on new car purchase. So 9% sales tax. In some states, there's a luxury tax on new cars. And then you've got all of the fees associated with it. So a $20,000 car times 1.09%, because you've got 100% of the value plus 9% tax. You're already at $2,180. Registering that car is another, what is it, like $200 to $500 depending on where you are. So let's call it $300 just for kicks and giggles. Any other fees associated with purchasing a car? Anybody? Is there anything? Have I forgotten something?
Well, the insurance.
Yeah, your insurance is going up because now you have a new car. So let's say your insurance goes up by, oh, there's a finance fee of $350. Okay, so $350, enter. And let's say your insurance goes up by 4%. Just for the sake of averages, times 1.04%. So it has cost you $3,400 that you did not account for before you even get out the door to get this new car. And now on top of it, you're paying a significant amount of money in interest versus if you, that $23,000 is going to be what a $20,000 costs you anyway, because, you know, we've ignored interest. So let's say that you borrow $24,000 from your personal insurance bank. So $24,000 times 0.05% per year. So it's costing you $1,200 a year to finance it from yourself times, let's say it takes you 5 years to pay it back. So it's costing you $6,000 to borrow that money from yourself versus if we have, let's do this again. We're going to erase all of this. Bear with me one quick second, guys. I really need to get my pen working again.
Another thing is the interest is front loaded,
Mm-hmm.
just like on a house. It's all
That's
front-loaded.
true because your payment schedule is structured. Okay, that's enough space. So we said $24,000, right? So our amount is principal. So $24,000 times 1 plus, what do we say? Our rate was 5.5
Mm.
over 30. And our number is 30. And we said 84 months.
Yeah, you said 84 months.
Okay, great.
What do
So
they do? They do 84-month car loans?
yeah, I had one.
Dang. That's
Yep.
7 years.
Yeah, back in the day when I was young and stupid. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so how do we simplify this, guys? So first thing we're gonna do is divide 5.5 divided by 30 is 0.1833. That's the reason I don't buy new cars. Okay, great. So A equals $24,000 times 1.1833 to the 30 times 84. We're going to bring back my calculator. 84 times 30 is 2520. Ouch. That sounds like a lot. 2520. And where did I put the power calculator? Power calculator. Okay, so 1.1833 to the 2520 power. And I don't even know what that is. That's a lot of. We're gonna do it. We'll figure it out per year. And then yeah.
Can you just do it on an amortization calculator?
Possibly. So we'll figure it out per year. So 30 times 12 is 360. So 1.1833 to the 360 Oh my God. 1.1833 to the 30th power equals 155. Okay, great. So $24,000 to times 155 point, we'll just call it 0.9. And that was monthly. So 155.9 times 12 times 7 years. Sorry, we're admitting people. Times $24,000. That, you're right. I'm going to use an amortization calculator
Yeah.
because my math broke. So let's try this again. Amortization calculator. Okay, so if our loan amount is $24,000, loan term is 7 years, and our interest rate is 5.5%, calculate.
28,000.
Exactly. So that is the difference. And that money we're paying back to ourselves.
And if you scroll down to see the interest, you'll see how it goes down lower and lower. But the first year you're paying $1,200, and the second year, so you're front loading all that interest.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's costing us significantly more money to have a car loan. And we are, at the end of that 7 years, we have basically the car,
Yeah,
which a $20,000 car at the end of 5 years, does anybody know how much it's worth?
in California, nothing.
Okay, well, nationwide, a car loses about 60% of its value in the first 5 years. So a $20,000 car is actually worth about $8,000 at the end of 5 years. And it took us 7 years to pay off that note.
Mm.
So $20,000 times 0.4 is what we're left with. That's $8,000. Versus because we've gone through the zero line example before, versus if we pay ourselves back, we have that full $24,000 that we borrowed from ourselves back. It has been gaining interest while we have spent it already. Plus we have that $8,000 car. So if we're earning, let's say, a positive 1% arbitrage, $24,000 times 1.01 plus $8,000. We have $32,000 to spend on the next car. And that's in 5 years, not 7.
Mhm.
So does everybody understand why compound interest is a huge deal when we're talking about debt and budgeting and whether or not we can afford something
Mhm.
versus loaning money to ourselves and growing an asset? Out of curiosity, how many people here would say that a car is an asset? Actually, everybody just put into the chat real quick, asset or liability, if you think a car is an asset or if you think it's a liability. Just curious. Liability, liability. liability of one person who says it's an asset.
Even a house is a liability.
It can be.
Yeah.
Okay, so the general consensus is that we all think a car is a liability. How many people here do not own a car? Anybody?
I own a car.
I'm assuming everybody here.
Free and
Asset
clear.
after you paid for it. Yes, thank you, Andrew. This is the point I was trying to get to. This example here is how we turn that necessary liability into an asset. Because we have paid for it from the ground up, and then we pay ourselves back while growing that same money again. So let me, new whiteboard. So we've got our car. Paid for fully. We owe the bank nothing, but we do owe ourselves. So now we're going to pay ourselves for 5 years instead of paying the bank for 7. We're going to refill our bank. Our bank is actually going to grow by 1%, because if our bank is earning somewhere between 5 and 6%, 5 to 6% growth, and we borrow at 4% loan, we're earning 1%, give or take. So we've paid for our car, we're earning 1%, we've refilled our pot. Our car is worth $8,000 at the end of 5 years. We've refilled our bucket. This is how that car becomes an asset, because we can now turn it in for something newer using the same money that we paid for it in the first place. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions on compound interest versus simple interest?
No. Good.
Okay. So this took slightly less time than I thought it was going to. Does anybody have any questions in general about anything that we've covered? Ever, not just today. Any client questions? Most cars older than 10 years depreciate down to nothing. Yeah, pretty much.
Well, it's a whole different ballgame with this electrical deal. All those gas vehicles well, here in California after 2035.
Would we ever want to use a policy to snowball pay off the debt? So that's actually a really interesting question, Joe, and that's a really good point. And here is my standpoint on it. My question is, what are you using to start the bank with? So if they have a lot of debt, how are you starting the bank? Whatever cash is available. Okay, here's my question. So let's just, for the sake of argument, say that they have $300 left in their budget. You know, they're pretty strapped for cash. They have a lot of debt. And they have $300 that they had been just chucking into a savings account, right? So you reallocate that $300 to a bank, and they're going to start their bank, their life insurance bank, and now they have $0 extra dollars because they have that need to pay that life insurance policy every month. Okay, 6 months down the road, their car just up and dies. It's going to cost them a ridiculous amount of money to fix it. They need to have a car to get to work. How are they paying for that car to be fixed or to buy a new one? How are they paying for it? Anybody? Take a loan. We have just caused them to take out more debt. So the first thing I would do with a client is take out the, has everybody here seen the family profit and loss exercise? No. Okay. Let me grab that real quick. So where is my family profit and loss? Household profit and loss management. Just opening up a spreadsheet real quick. It'll start in a second, but basically I do this. If I cannot get somebody out of debt right away, honestly, I make everybody do this exercise. I honestly made a very good friend of mine do this exercise, and that friend as a family is making over $200,000 a year. They're pretty well off. I still made them do this exercise. The point is for them to go through everything they are spending. I don't care where that money's going. I don't. If they're comfortable with their lifestyle, great. But they need to see where their money is going. The number I care about is this one right here, the difference. I want to see this number be 0. Because if this number is positive or negative, that means they have unaccounted for money or they are overspending their budget. So if they are overspending, we need to figure out how we're going to get them out of debt ever, because they need to have a positive arbitrage. And if they have extra money in there, I want to know, where did it go? Find it. Where did it go? This number should be 0 for one simple reason, because if that money is going into savings, then it should be here. If it's going into investments, it should be here. If it's being donated, it should be over here. So this number right here should be 0, always. And it's amazing how many clients I've had go through this exercise and come back and be like, yeah, I did not realize that I was spending $600 a month on coffee. I did not realize that I was spending $347 a month on streaming services. I didn't realize that I have $124 in subscription services that I don't use anymore. Okay, so why, if you're not comfortable with those numbers, or if it's something you don't use anymore, maybe cancel some of those subscriptions that you don't use, because that's money out the window, and reallocate those dollars into something that is achieving your financial objectives. And in this case, the financial objective is to get out of debt. So does that make sense that we're going to make them do this exercise to start with?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so before we even think about writing a bank for this client that it has massive amounts of debt, they need to know where all of their money is going. So that being said, they're going to do this exercise for a absolute bare minimum of 3 months. And I'm also going to say that they need to go back into their financial records and do this exercise for 3 to 6 months past, to see where their money is going and what their pattern of spending is. Because we need to determine if they are spenders or savers. If they are already savers, we're going to help them do that. If they are spenders, we know that they don't have the money right now to get a bank. And if they are spenders, we don't know that they have the discipline to keep it. And this may be a very, very selfish motive, but in helping other people, you still have to protect yourself. And if they are spenders and they cannot see the serious long-term benefits of having a bank, or if they're just in a tight spot that they're just really not ready for that bank, that can come back to a chargeback on you. And that is really not what you want. That is not your objective. And you need to protect yourself as well as help your client. And helping your client means making sure that they are prepared. So if they need to be protected against something detrimental in their lives, you can set them up with something that is inexpensive, like a term policy or an annual renewable term for a short period of time to bridge that gap until they are ready to start their bank. But I would talk about doing something like a term policy to make sure they're covered for the here and now, and then also put them on a plan to snowball their debt without using the bank to do it, but snowball that debt until, however much money they're spending, let's say it's $1,000 a month that they are putting into debt payments, debt service, really, and get rid of all of that debt. And now they've got $1,300 a month that they can be building their bank with. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? Joe? Okay, good. So yeah, take that. Let's, for kicks and giggles, say that it is $300 a month that they were saving. I might take half to 2/3 of it, and immediately snowball into that debt. But I would still leave some of it, depending on the family, depending on how much debt they have, depending on what they have going on in their lives, still going towards savings because of that just in case. That just in case column, that, what happens if something happens, they need to have something with which to deal with that problem. And can we have a copy of that spreadsheet? Yes, send me an email if you need it. I'll put my email in here. Yep. So send me an email if you need this spreadsheet. This is the household profit and loss spreadsheet. And I will send that to you this afternoon. Just make sure you send me an email and request it. And in terms of paying off debts, I know I've gone through this in the past. I'm going to pull up a client super fast. Life Plan 360. Bear with me one quick second. I just want to pull up a client to show you how this works. So let me pull this in. So if I go to clients, view clients, what dummy clients do I have? I think I had a bunch of stuff in here. So we're going to go to step 3. Yeah, there were a couple of things in here. So initially, they had $473 a month on a $12,300 debt, $250 on a $1,475 debt, $200 a month on a $10,000 debt, and $800 a month on a $66,000 debt. So how do we deal with this? The first thing we do is we need to figure out the payment to debt ratio. So what we're attempting to do is to purchase cash flow. The way we do that is we take the payment and we divide it by the total debt. So that is 3.8%. So 250 divided by 1475 is almost 17%. So good chance we're going to pay that one off first. 200 divided by 10,000 is 2%, and 800 divided by $66,000 is 1.2%. So does anybody know why we did this exercise? Anybody? Okay, the reason that we did this exercise is because we are purchasing cash flow. When we're paying off debt, that's what we're doing. We are purchasing cash flow because cash flow is important to be able to pay off our debt quickly. So people like purchasing they don't like restricting their budgets. So when we are purchasing cash flow, we are trying to we're trying to get a good deal, right? Think about it as going to a sale. You know, are you going to go clothes shopping when you don't have any coupons and there are no sales on and you're going to spend $100 on a pair of jeans? Or do you feel better about it when you got that same pair of jeans for 70% off? You know, you got the same pair of jeans for $30. You like those jeans better because you got them for $30, right?
Yep.
Exactly. So we're going to think about paying off our debt in the same manner, because it's not you have debt, you need to get out of this debt. You need to purchase cash flow. So we're trying to purchase the most amount of cash flow for the least amount of capital. So in this pile of debt right here, which debt are we going to pick out to purchase cash flow with first? The one we can get the best deal on, the one that is buying us 17% cash flow. We only spent less than $1,500 to buy $250 of cash flow. So what's the next thing that we're going to pay off? We're going to apply that $250 into our car note, because that one was what, 3.8%, I think. So that one is the next best deal. So now we've got $720 some odd dollars a month going into our car. So how quickly are we going to pay off that $12,300? So once that is paid off, we're now going to put $900 and something a month into paying off the credit card. And once the credit card is paid off, once we get rid of that $10,000, we now have what, $1,500 something, $1,700 a month that we're putting into that student loan. How much faster is that going to get paid off? Notice I didn't say anything about interest rates. Notice I didn't say anything about how much the debt was. You know, that $10,000 is less than that $12,000, but we paid off the $12,000 first because it's purchasing more cash flow to do it. We can pay it off faster. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So we are coming up to the top of the hour. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have any more questions for the day. Does anybody have any other last minute questions, comments, concerns that they would like to address? Okay. And also, guys, I want to make sure that we're keeping these conversations and trainings relevant to everybody and what they want to see and what is useful to them. So please feel free to send me an email, call me, whatever, smoke signal, pigeon, to let me know what you guys need help with, what you want to see. Reach out to me if you need help with a client build, whatever. I really want to make sure that I am doing my level best to help you guys succeed. So with that, I will say have a great weekend, guys, and I will see you next week, same time, same place.
All right, you too.
All right, have a great weekend, guys.
Hmm.
Bye.